So glad to have everybody here. Hard to believe it's the last meeting of the year. Wow. Nothing like going out on a bumpy mic day, you know, much like the weather. It is our last meeting. Excited to hear Barry Foster. I had a chance to hear him up in Fayetteville. I think you're going to enjoy what he has to say, and then we're going to do some Q&A, and we'll open it up to you too. Is this week 15? Is it 15 speakers that we've had? Let me see here. Yeah, 15. Lord have mercy. It seems like it was last year when we had Coach Bielema. And yeah, he wishes he could go back too. Yeah. We do want to thank Gary Underwood for doing our prayer every week. Gary, thank you for doing that. Would you come up and lead us? The last time this year until we get to the banquet with Coach Holtz in February.
Thank you, David. I would say I missed you guys last week, but I was visiting Mickey and Donald and wearing shorts. So, and came back to this. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the good things that you provide for us and our families every day. We ask you to use those things in our lives to help us to help others. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate that. You know, we started out this year being the 10th anniversary, and you think about it, we had Brett Bielema, Cliff Harris, Roger Staubach, Drew Pearson, Charlie Waters, Mel Renfro, Gil Brandt, Gene Stallings, all on the same day, Dan Hampton, Tom Osborne, Jeff Long, Houston Nutt, Gene Chizik, Clint Conk, Mitch Mustaine, Jonathan Louise, Brian Harson, Steve Sullivan, Roland Sells, Ike Forte, Richard Davenport, Chris Hayes, and we end up with Barry Foster. That is a heck of a year. My gosh. Congratulations. I'm telling you, it's been outstanding. I do want to thank our tremendous founders and all of our board members. If you don't have my sheet here with me handy, I thought I had it. If you are a board member or a founding member, let me see if I have it here. Look at here. Okay, real quick, I'm going to run through these because I need to do it. These are our founders. If you're here, please stand. Clint Albright, Bob Bomar, John Coulter, Nate Coulter, Dane Cowling, Wally Hall, Tommy Harkins, Bruce James, Rob James, Andrew Metter, Scott Miller, Rex Nelson, Kenny O'Connor, David Parker, John Piron, Martin Silverfield, and Bill Vickery. Let's give all those guys a round of applause who started this club. And as you can see, since we only had 2 of us here from that list, it was important that I felt we needed to expand the board. Just being honest. And I do want to let's recognize these new Touchdown Club board members. Renata Jenkins-Byler, Ronald Davis, please stand, Judy Henry, Ann Jansen, Bill Jackson, B.J. Mack, Ark and Nancy Monroe, Jim Rasco, Wes Sutton, and Gary Underwood. Let's give these board members a round of applause. I do want to remind everybody, we were doing our voting for SEC Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, National Player of the Year, Coach of the Year. So if you hadn't gotten a ballot, just wave your hand and maybe Kelly will see you. We'll compile those and we will announce those at our banquet coming up in February. 2 things on 2 banquets, 2 great banquets. We've got the Broyles Award coming up December 10th. Where's Jeff Hildebrand? There are tickets available, and I think we're going to have another blockbuster class of finalists. We will announce the finalists next. It's the Monday after the SEC championship game, which is next Monday, right? No, it's the Monday following. Boy, I tell you, it's all blurry. But it's going to be a great group. Contact the Little Rock Rotary Club if you've never been to it. How many of you have been to the Broyles Award before? Raise your hand. It is truly, if you love football, it is outstanding, and we've got a Broyles in the audience I'm going to introduce here in just a second. And then don't forget, for Lou Holtz, tickets are $50 for the Lou Holtz banquet. That's February 13th. You can go online. You can email Kelly if you want to hit. Nope. Not ready to take them online, but if they want to email you, they can email you. That's right. If you want to talk to Kelly about maybe being a sponsor, we're going to have player sponsorships and so forth. Make sure and take advantage of that. Do want to thank Brent Birch at Flex 360. He's been amazing in helping us with our Touchdown Club website and the Cliff Harris Award. So, you guys, if you need any help, Brent Birch at Flex 360 is amazing with the website. Do want to thank all of you who are our 50-yard line members. If you're a 50-yard line member, would you raise your hand if you're here today? Let's give those folks a round of applause. They have paid even extra to help support the club. All of you who've joined, I think, Rex, we were around 60 or 70 for the National Football Foundation. That's excellent for our first year. I bet you they haven't had a club in the country get that many in 1 year. Hall of Fame members, I think we had a 25 or 30 for the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame, so congratulations and thank you for doing that. Remember, for the Lou Holtz Banquet, we'll have the Cliff Harris Award, the Willie Rofe and Dan Hampton Awards, the Sully Award, and then we'll also announce the votes today, and MVP from every college, and MVPs from every high school classification, and Coach of the Year. And that's 7,000 people being honored that day. But we're going to change things up. We're not going to let every player speak because Coach Holtz is going to be there. That's been something that's been really a fun part of that banquet. Because we're getting Coach Holtz, we're going to let Coach Holtz speak and honor those other players, but let Coach Holtz do all the talking. Do want to thank our sponsors for the last time this year. Twin City Limousine, who picked up Barry today in style. Do want to thank Popeye and Dale Bennett, Greg Hatcher. 103.7 The Buzz, there's Justin Akery in the back, along with Phil Ellison and Matt Harris. Justin's been here every Monday. It's been great to have him here interviewing our guests, plus having our guests speak. Barry, when you speak, you're going to be two things. You'll be on The Buzz at some point live, and you're going to be live around the world on the internet. So, yeah, so you're going worldwide today. So do want to thank The Buzz. Do want to thank Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau. I know David's around here somewhere. Thank you so much for supporting us as always. Another year. Glad to have the LRCVB and the exciting things going on here in Little Rock. Metters, Adams, and Lee. Thanks to the folks over there. If you have any insurance needs, please call them and tell them you heard about them with the Touchdown Club. Epic Health, glad to have Epic Health first year with us, and we hope we get them again next year. They've got a big announcement coming up. Wendy's, who's sponsoring both the Rofe and Hampton Awards. Nan Trammell, thank you so much for sponsoring that. It's great to have Wendy's on board. Wright Lindsay Jennings. I did want to mention, if I have them, Judy Henry, Antoine Phillips, Patrick Young, Charlie Coleman, Seth Jewell, and Heather Almendinger. Thank you guys for being a great supporter of the Touchdown Club and this Cliff Harris Award. They're getting ready to go to work. We had 100 nominees. 100 nominees for the Cliff Harris Award. So this week, when we announced the 100 nominees, Rex pointed out, you could go to websites in all parts of the country, and there it is. John Smith nominated for the Cliff Harris Award. See more about Cliff Harris. And so it's, yeah, Little Rock Touchdown Club. So in 100 different markets. It's a lot of extra work, but it's a really cool deal. And then we've got to narrow it down to about 30 finalists, and then we'll pick a winner. So, and they'll get this beautiful trophy. So I want to thank for the folks at Wright Lindsay and Jennings and their sports law team. If they ever have any needs, whether it be sports or non-sports, legal, to go to them. Crane Automotive, Drew and Larry, thanks so much for sponsoring us now in our 4th year. Crane does so much in the community. We appreciate him being a part of the Touchdown Club. The Democrat Gazette that I was featured in this week, which I'm going to reference a little bit later before we get started. I do want to thank Wally Hall and Tabitha Cunningham for their support. It's great to have the Democrat Gazette on board for this many years. And last but not least, I do want to thank Metropolitan Bank. As you know, there have been a few changes that have been in the works, and I don't know all the details. I'm going to let Lunsford come up here just a second. He said he promised he wouldn't take more than 30, 40 minutes. And but I'm going to let Lunsford come up. But I'll tell you, it's been so nice. First of all, we always have the great crew of Metropolitan folks down here. But to be able to walk in Lunsford's office for 9 years and say, can we count on you to have X amount of dollars? And Lunsford says, yes, yes, yes. It's been great to have him up here at the head table for 9 years. Now, that's a partnership. Exactly right. So, Lunsford, would you come up and say a few words?
Thank you, David. As y'all know, we're in the process of being merged into Simmons Bank, which will occur very quickly. And consequently, this is, as the club draws to a close for the year, except for the banquet, will be our last opportunity to be signed as the sponsor. It's been an incredible 9 years for the bank, for the club. We couldn't be more proud of anything than what's been accomplished here with the club and with the state, and how much it has meant not only to those of us who have been here at the meetings, but those out in the state that have enjoyed and seen what's gone on here. It's been fantastic. I don't know how many of you read the newspaper yesterday and saw the high profile on David. I think it gave David a little of the recognition that he deserves for, again, not only the Touchdown Club, but for the Wayne Harris Award, for the Broyles, for the Boot, all of those things that we know so much about. But there's a whole lot more to David than just those trophies. He's a great Arkansan, a great friend, and I think all of us owe David an incredible debt of gratitude. And Barry, I'm trying to figure out a way to get you dressed out for Friday, so hang on. Let's go.
Thank you, Lunsford. Thank you, Lunsford. That's very kind. I appreciate those kind of words. And I can remember, it's hard to believe, how many people in here were members the first year? Raise your hand. You know, we didn't have any sponsors year one. None. And it's exciting to know that people want to be the sponsor, especially people want to be the presenting sponsor. And it's been great to have Metropolitan be such a great presenting sponsor for so many years. Let me see here. Do want to thank Embassy Suites, Casey. Thank you so much for doing a great job, Beth and Wayne and everybody else. By the way, did he say Wayne Harris? Is that another award? No. He said Wayne. Thumper. The Thumper Award. There we go. Yes, Cliff. That's all right. Dwayne Duncan, who's been a super photographer. Where's Dwayne? Dwayne has gone all over the place to take photos. Thank you for being so great all this year, Dwayne. It's been super, yes. He has been everywhere from the press conference to today, to the Battle of the Ravine. Matt Johnson has been doing our live stream. Don't forget, if you want to let your friends see Barry on the internet, tell them to go to lrtouchdown.com. Matt, thanks for a great job back here all year. Thank you so much. Kelly Lassane, our executive director, great job this year doing what a crazy year it's been, and she was outstanding. Thank you, Kelly, so much. Let's give her a round of applause if you could. And let me mention Marilyn Miller, Melissa Nelson, Lauren Landers, Marnie Sharp, Hope Hankins, Shelley Seitz, Jennifer Owens, Julie Tabor, Charlene Francis, and Courtney Bokerman. If I've left anybody else, let's give them all a round of applause for the amazing job that they've done. Couldn't do it without them. No player of the week this week. It's been great. I think we've had some great players this year, and it's, I got a nice note on Facebook from the mother of the young man who was last here. I'm going to tell you, I forget what town. Greenland? Was it Greenland? I forget where. You weren't here, I don't think. Was it Woodland? Woodland. How excited and how big time it was for them to come and get a standing ovation. Sometimes we sort of forget about it. You get a kid from a small school and his parents come in and get up here and get a round of applause. So we forget that sometimes, but it's really a neat deal. So no player of the week this week. I do want to mention a couple of special guests here. Betsy Broyles Arnold and her daughter, Molly Arnold Gates, are here. And did I get that right? Is it Gay? Gay. I'm sorry, I don't know where I got Gates from. Molly Arnold Gay, and that is Betsy's daughter. They are here representing Caregivers United, and that is the organization that they founded with Frank Broyles. And November is National Alzheimer's Month, National Caregiving Month, and National Hospice Month. And they drove all the way down here to make media appearances. They were on Channel 7 this morning. They've been on The Buzz. They may be doing some other channels before they leave. And so I invited them to come by today. And just to give you an idea, you remember the book that came out, Coach Broyles' Playbook for Alzheimer's Caregivers, and a tips and strategy guide? That's right. They started with 100,000 copies, and they have given away 800,000 copies in 11 languages to folks who help them deal. Let's give them a round of applause. Would you please stand? Molly, Betsy, please stand. They've got a passion for what they went through with, obviously, with Betsy's mom, Barbara, and so they're doing a great job in helping us educate others and helping educate us. So keep up the good work, and it's been great having Betsy and Molly both at the majority of the Broyles Awards every year. So always glad to have Coach Broyles in town for that. Before we get to Rex, I tell you what, we're going to go ahead and let Rex go, and then I got one other thing to say, and then we'll get Barry up here. For his last recap of the year, Rex, I got to say, you couldn't do it without you. You helped make this club a great club with your recaps. Last one of the year. Let's give it up for Rex Nelson, everybody.
Thanks, David. While we're making club announcements, I do want you to know that David Harold will be signing copies of this after today's meeting. I assume everybody brought their high profile. I brought mine to get an autograph, Harold, so he will be signing those. It was a wonderful story. I learned some things. Did any of y'all realize David played football at the University of Arkansas? Wow. And you know, one thing that wasn't pointed out in here, for those of you who attend this club on a regular basis, every former coach that has ever spoken to this club in its 10 years of existence actually recruited David, if you noticed in all those introductions through the years. But no, a great story. One thing did disturb me a little bit, David, and that is the fact that as a teenager, instead of having good-looking women on your walls, you had fish charts on your walls. As much as I love fishing, I'd have felt better back in that age if you'd have had, say, that Cheryl Tiegs cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. Those of us of a certain age certainly remember that. But again, Harold will be signing these. Great story. Congratulations. I am going to start the last meeting of the year with an editorial. I guess if you're on TV, you got to have the little signature show up behind you there. I realize I'm getting old. I realize I'm a traditionalist and that I may not understand what young athletes want today. But a memo from a native Arkansan who grew up to this state, to whom it may concern. We want our Razorbacks back in 2014. Our Razorbacks do not wear gray uniforms, and they certainly do not wear gray helmets. Our Razorbacks wear red helmets, and they wear red jerseys when they're at home. There, out of my system. Out of my system. All right, where do we start? 24-17, War Memorial Stadium. I'll run through this quickly. First 8-game losing streak in school history. Arkansas now tied the single-season record for most losses. Razorbacks did have 8 losses at 2-8 in 1950, at 2-8 in 1952, at 3-8 in 1990, and at 4-8 last year. Lost at LSU on Friday, should it occur, will result in the most losses in school history. First time for Mississippi State to beat Arkansas in consecutive years. Arkansas now 15-6-1 against State since joining the SEC. Razorbacks, since joining the SEC, had been 9-0-1 against Mississippi State in games played in Arkansas. There was a 13-13 tie back in 1993. Bulldogs had lost to Arkansas in overtime games in 1996, 2000, 2010. All of those overtime games, some of you were probably at all of those, were played in Starkville. All right, a couple of silver linings. The record at War Memorial is still sterling. Arkansas is 149, 48, and 5 at War Memorial Stadium. Another fact, if you look forward to the future, always look for that silver lining, the Razorbacks started 7 true freshmen on Saturday. Not many people in Division I doing that. Elsewhere, Arkansas State survived a huge scare against an 0-11 Georgia State team in Jonesboro. Red Wolf stopped a 2-point conversion attempt. Then they had to recover an onside kick with 2 minutes left just to hang on, 35-33. They do, however, go to 5-1 in conference, 7-4 overall. 4th consecutive win for the Red Wolves. They trailed that game 17-7 at halftime and were outgained in yardage, 432 to 290. In the end, though, 4 turnovers doomed Georgia State, and ASU wins in Jonesboro despite, get this, they went 1 of 12 on third down. How many teams go 1 of 12 on third down and win? On Saturday, they go up to Western Kentucky and play a guy named Bobby Petrino. Ever heard of him? That's who they end the regular season against. UCA, congratulations to the Bears. A disappointing season based on their expectations, but they end with a winning record and a big win, 49-31 upset of Sam Houston State in Conway. They finished the year 7-5, 4-3 in conference. Sam Houston is 8-4. They had come into that game ranked 9th in the FCS. UCA forced 6 turnovers, though. Their junior quarterback, Ryan Howard, 24 of 36 passing, 349 yards, 4 touchdowns. That was his 6th start since replacing Winrick Smothers when Smothers went out with an injury. Sophomore quarterback Taylor Reed out of El Dorado also threw a touchdown pass for the Bears. UAPB, I'm going to cover it, Ron. You were there, whether you want me to or not. In 2012, UAPB won the SWAC. In 2013, the Golden Lions had a tough year. They finished 2-9, 2-7 in the SWAC. Season ended on a cold Saturday afternoon with a 43-23 loss to Prairie View A&M. Ron was there, and he said there's nothing to stop the wind around Prairie View. Prairie View had 597 yards of offense, scored the game's first 22 points. Golden Line quarterback Ben Anderson was 17 of 38 passing, 226 yards and a touchdown. And for a second consecutive season, Henderson goes undefeated in the regular season, then loses its first game, unfortunately, in the NCAA Division II playoffs. Last year, it was Missouri Western that won. This time, it was St. Cloud State out of Minnesota that beat the Reddies in Arkadelphia. It was in Arkansas, but they felt like they were in Minnesota, probably why they played well, as cold as it was Saturday. They win it 40-35. The 11-1 Reddies committed 4 costly turnovers. Kevin Rogers, you've heard us talk about him all year long for Henderson. He did pass, even in a losing cause, for 567 yards. Get this, and he's just a junior. He's just a junior. He has 10,076 career passing yards. He's over the 10,000 mark with another year still to go. Reddies are 21-2 over the past 2 seasons, with both losses coming in the playoffs with Rogers as quarterback, and he is back next year. Now, on to the SEC. LSU finally puts together the game it had been looking for, I think, all year, beating Texas A&M in Baton Rouge 34-10. Quote from Johnny Manziel, quote, "We just got punched in the mouth tonight, and it wasn't fun." That is for sure. Manziel did pass for 224 yards and a touchdown. He was sacked twice, though. He was intercepted twice. He completed just 16 of 41 passes. A&M and LSU are both 8-3 overall. They're both 4-3 in the conference. LSU ended A&M's 13-game streak of scoring 40 or more points, and they hold them to 10. Very impressive. That was the lowest Aggie point total and the lowest Aggie total yards since Manziel began starting at quarterback. And Missouri, who saw this coming? I don't think any of us did to start the season. 1 win away from the SEC championship game in Atlanta after that 24-10 victory over Ole Miss over in Oxford. Mizzou jumped to a 17-3 halftime lead, never looked back. James Franklin is back at quarterback. He completed 12 of 19 for 142 yards after missing 4 games due to a shoulder injury. So Missouri is 10-1, 6-1 in the conference. Ole Miss had come in with a 4-game winning streak. They fought a 7-4, 3-4. If they win the Egg Bowl, probably still get a very nice bowl game with 8 wins. Ole Miss got only 3 points in 3 trips into the red zone, and it was really costly. And then how about what happened in the swamp on Saturday? Will Muschamp's going to make somebody a good defensive coordinator next year. I do know that. If not, he'll be speaking to the Little Rock Touchdown Club. We always get them a year after they're gone, don't we, David? Put that on your list. Georgia Southern, 26. Florida, 20. Georgia Southern came in as a 4-touchdown underdog. Florida previously had been 7-0 against FCS teams, and their average margin of victory against FCS teams, 45 points. Florida now 4-7. They've lost 6 consecutive games. It's their first losing season since 1979. Georgia, 7-4 after its 59-17 win over Kentucky. Aaron Murray threw 4 touchdown passes in the first half, but of course he hurt his left knee in that game. Kentucky now, if you like misery loves company, has now lost 15 consecutive SEC games. They're 2-9 and 0-7. And how about Vanderbilt, Tommy? Vanderbilt beats Tennessee for a 2nd consecutive year. Care to guess the last time that happened in consecutive years? Try 1925, 1926, the last time that happened. Vanderbilt is 7-4. Tennessee is 4-7. And get this, I can go back even further, Jim, in history with a date. It's the 4th consecutive losing season for Tennessee. That last occurred 1903 through 1906, the last time that happened at Tennessee. Wow. Alabama goes to 11-0, 45-0 warm-up win over Chattanooga. A.J. McCarron, though, becomes the school's winningest quarterback. Now, you think of the quarterbacks that have come through that Alabama program through the years, and to think that A.J. McCarron now has more wins than any of them. He's 36-2 as a starter. 13 of 16 passing, 171 yards. Not stats that cause your eyes to roll back in your head. All he does is win, as they say. South Carolina moves to 9-2, 70-10 over Coastal Carolina. It was the most points in Steve Spurrier's 9 seasons at South Carolina. It was also the Gamecocks' 17th consecutive home win, and it was Spurrier's 75th win as South Carolina's head coach. Now, one final note to drive home my point. Did you notice that Tennessee and Texas A&M both wore gray on Saturday? Did you notice that Tennessee lost to Vanderbilt and Texas A&M lost to LSU? So there, I've got the gray out of my system. All right, this week, Thursday night, as you sit back full of turkey, you get to watch the Rotten Egg Bowl from Stark Vegas. It's Ole Miss at Mississippi State. Friday, Arkansas at LSU. Now, not everybody at once. How many like Arkansas to go in and pull off the upset at Baton Rouge? All right. Jody, you're running for office or something to vote that way. All right, on Saturday, Wake Forest at Vanderbilt. Tennessee is at Kentucky. Florida State at Florida. Georgia at Georgia Tech. Clemson at South Carolina. Texas A&M at Missouri. How many of you like the Aggies to go back into Columbia and spoil Missouri's day? Texas A&M. All right, Missouri, pretty heavy favorite there, but a few Aggies. And then the Iron Bowl. What a game. That game has such a history. I've been honored enough to go to, I think, 4 of them through the years, and it is something special to consider, though. This is the first time that the SEC West has ever ridden on that one game. So anybody, it's Alabama at Auburn, anybody like Gus Malzahn to work his magic and Auburn to win on Saturday? Hey, got a handful. Alabama? All right, we got some good football to watch this weekend. Thanks for a great year. Lunsford, I want to say from myself, thank you for a great 9 years. We couldn't have done this without you. And sincerely, David, congratulations. It was a great story. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for your attendance, everybody.
Rex Nelson, everybody. Tommy, did you play on that 1925 team with Coach Nealon? Come on now. No? I'm kidding. Yeah, great to be a Vanderbilt Commodore. 1920, George Nealon. General Nealon. And how about Gus Malzahn? Whether you like him or not, he's an Arkansan, and he has done probably going to be the National Coach of the Year. Remarkable. I don't think they're going to beat Alabama, but wouldn't it be something if he did? And doesn't Missouri, you remember Missouri really barely lost that game to South Carolina. They really should have won that game, and they're just kicking themselves. But listen, I think they're for real. I did want to mention, Rex, I know there's some news coming down the pipe. We can't talk about it, but I can't talk about Cliff. But I'll say that it's been a great year for Cliff Harris. And wouldn't it be great if what we're doing for Cliff would maybe give him a little momentum to get in the NFL Hall of Fame? Wouldn't that be cool if we can say that we had a little bit of a help with pushing that momentum? I do want to thank my girlfriend, Chantel, who spent probably 7 hours when those 100 nominees started coming in. She helped do spreadsheets. She's a CPA, and I would say, can you do this? And she'd start plugging in numbers and doing this. And so thank you. She did a ton of work, so I appreciate her. And let me just say this real quick on the high profile. I have not read the article yet. I've not read it, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I have so much anxiety, and I'll tell you why. I know that there's not enough people mentioned in that article, whether it be you here, that I talked about. I talked to Evan for 6 hours, and I mentioned all the people that work with me to get this stuff done. And it's embarrassing that Rex can't be in there, and Kelly can't be in there, and Jeff Hildebrand for the Broyles Award, and all of you, and Lunsford, and all. And so I just want to say this, is that I'm humbled by that, but it's a team effort. You know, one of the greatest thrills, I told my dad last night, I said, I don't have much money in the bank, Dad, but one of the greatest thrills I have in my life, and I've never been here, is walking up that door at 10:30 last week. 10:15, and seeing a line of people at that door, and the doors don't open until 11. And to me, all the hours, I don't get much sleep, and I do work around the clock. That's what means something to me. And I do get a lot of attention for the things I do, and I don't really like it. I don't mind it, but that's why that article, it didn't give me a chance to say thanks to all of you who make this thing happen, and all of you up here, and all of you. So I do want to say I'm humbled to be here in Arkansas, and I know it's a teamwork thing, and I'm just blessed. I just want to say thanks to because y'all, everybody here makes that happen. It's not just me by myself. And Jim, you're going to come up and introduce our guest for the last time. And Jim does a great job like nobody else. Barry, you're going to get the best introduction you've ever had. And what we're going to do, Barry would like to do like some of the other speakers have done, talk for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then he wants to go do some Q&A. I promise I won't take up all the Q&A like I normally do. And we'll open up to some of you. But without further ado, for his last time, introducing our guest, Jim Rasko, everybody.
Thank you, David. Not in my notes, but I will mention as a trivia fact, since Lunsford talking about his last time as a sponsor, Lunsford and I graduated from Hendrix College in the same class in 1963, 50 years ago. Small world. Barry Foster was destined to play for the Hogs at a very young age. When he was only 6 years old, he remembers being with his family, watching from across the street as a home in his neighborhood was on fire. His mother told him to stay put. But as people were running to put out the fire, the pigs in the yard got loose and started running everywhere. Barry helped chase the pigs and carried them back to where they belong. The next day, he got his picture in the paper for saving the Hogs. A little over a decade later, he was a high school All-America fullback at Duncanville, Texas, and narrowed his college choices to Southern California, Nebraska, and Arkansas. Ken Hatfield won the recruiting battle, and Barry became a freshman in the fall of 1987. He was one of only 4 true freshmen to play that year and ended up as the Hogs' second leading ground gainer behind only James Rouse. For the season, Arkansas won 9 games, finished second in the SWC, and accepted an invitation to play Georgia in the Liberty Bowl on December 29, 1987. Arkansas led 17-7 at the end of 3 quarters, but lost 20-17 on a Georgia field goal on the last play of the game. As a sophomore in 1988, Barry led the Hogs in rushing and in kickoff returns as Arkansas compiled a perfect record of 7-0 and won the outright Southwest Conference Championship by a 2-game margin. The Razorbacks won their first 10 games before falling to national power Miami 18-16 in the final game of the regular season. No one here that watched that game will ever forget Barry Foster blasting through the Miami line and racing 80 yards for the Hogs' first touchdown. In the third quarter, Foster scored again to give the Hogs a 16-15 lead. Barry's 2 touchdowns were the only 2 times the Miami goal line was crossed in all of their home games at the Orange Bowl Stadium that season. As a junior in 1989, Foster was named first-team All-Southwest Conference as Arkansas won their second consecutive outright Southwest Conference championship. I don't have time to touch on all the highlights of the 1989 season, but on the night of October the 28th, here we go, right here at War Memorial Stadium. It has been written that, considering the stakes and the opponent, Arkansas had probably its best offensive game in history. The opponent was Houston, quarterbacked by Heisman Trophy winner Andre Ware. I've got both the Gazette and the Democrat here. We'll hold up the Gazette one. And there is Barry Foster plowing against Houston. And the final score was Arkansas 45, Houston 39. In that game, Barry Foster was Arkansas's leading ground gainer with 125 yards on 20 carries. Barry's final game as a Razorback was the Cotton Bowl game following the 1989 season. Though Arkansas lost to Tennessee 31-27, Foster tied the Razorback individual bowl game record by scoring 2 touchdowns. That Razorback record had been first set and then equaled by our guest of 2 weeks ago. Ike Forte said it, Roland Sales equaled it. Barry Foster equaled it again. Foster also set 2 new Razorback Bowl game records. First, he had the longest Razorback kickoff return, and he added a 2-point conversion run to his 2 touchdowns to give him 16 points for the game, the most points ever scored by a Razorback in a bowl game. Following the 1990 Cotton Bowl, Barry was the first Arkansas player to pass up his senior season and enter the NFL draft. I know you came to hear Barry and not me, so I'll only mention one season of Barry's NFL career with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The season was 1992. Barry Foster led the NFL's AFC division with 1,690 rushing yards, which set a new single-season rushing record in the history of the Steelers franchise. He also led the division with 11 touchdowns. He was voted the AFC Offensive Player of the Year, and he and Emmitt Smith of the Dallas Cowboys were both unanimous All-Pro running backs. I checked that out last night. I looked, and there were 6 All-Pro teams picked that year. Emmitt Smith and Barry Foster were the two running backs on all 6 All-Pro teams. Barry was selected to start in the annual Pro Bowl All-Star game and led his team to a 23-20 victory. I'll add that Barry was injured in the 9th game of the 1993 season, but was again selected to his division's Pro Bowl squad, though his injuries prohibited him from playing. Continued injuries forced his retirement from the NFL after the 94 season. Turning back to his career at Arkansas, in addition to being named first-team All-Conference in 1989, Barry was selected to the Razorback All-Decade team of the 1980s and to the Razorback All-Century team, which was announced in 1994. And to top it all off, a few months ago, Barry was inducted in the University of Arkansas Sports Hall of Honor. So here's the man you all came to hear, former All-Pro running back with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Razorback number 18, Barry Foster.
Thank you so much. That was a great introduction. I'd like to start out by thanking the Little Rock Touchdown Club for inviting me here. It really is an honor. I had the opportunity to look at the list of all the previous speakers that you guys have had in the past, and just to be able to speak to you guys, I'm truly honored. And as I was looking at that list, I mean, I'm looking at all these awesome names. You know, I see a lot of things that these guys have in common, and that's their love for football. Football at some point has had a tremendous impact on their lives, and I'm no different. Football has been a great game for me. It has had a tremendous impact on my life. Without football, I would definitely be somewhere that I wouldn't want to be, so I'm thankful for football. But looking at these distinguished guests, that's one thing that I can say that I've enjoyed watching most of these guys. I grew up watching a lot of these guys. I'm from Dallas, Texas, but I'm very honored to be here, and it's just a situation where I just want to thank you guys for coming out, braving the weather. You know, it's been rainy and sleet, and you guys still came out. It just makes me feel good to know that you guys care about your touchdown club, care about hearing me speak, so thank you guys for coming out as well. Like most football players, I started playing football at a very early age. For me, football has been a part of my life since I was about 6 years old. And I can clearly remember sitting in the living room with my older brothers watching the Dallas Cowboys play a football game. And I vividly remember watching Tony Dorsett run a touchdown, and it was a winning touchdown. And as he scored the winning touchdown, I remember watching all of his teammates jump on him, patting him on the back, celebrating with him. All the fans in Texas Stadium they were cheering for him. And I stood there watching the TV, and at that very moment, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to play football. And so I told my older brothers, I said, you know, I want to play football. You guys help me play football, because at that point, my mother wouldn't let me play. I was too young. And so I needed my brothers, my older brothers, to go and convince our mom, let me play. And so they went on. It took a little work, but they convinced her to let me play. So I started playing Pop Warner football. Some people call it Pee Wee football. And as I began to play Pop Warner football, I quickly found out that football was the one thing that I was really good at. You know, football was the one sport that I really, really enjoyed. And, football was one of those things that I took pride in. I was like, man, I can really be successful if I continue with this football. And so, as I mentioned earlier, football has been a tremendous blessing to me. It has been a great sport. It's given me so much. I'm glad to be able to give back as I coach young kids, younger players. So football has been a tremendous sport in my life. I guess looking back as a young kid, I look back and I often reflect on some of the younger kids that I played with, some of the younger coaches I had early in my career. And not too often do I get a chance to thank those guys. I mean, at this point, they probably will never hear this, but I just want to thank all those coaches early in my career when I was a young kid, all those teammates, I want to thank them for their help because they really taught me how to put team first. It really taught me how to play for the team and not just for myself. So I thank those coaches and those early teammates early in my career. It's hard to I don't want to repeat some of the same things in the introduction, but once I got to the high school level, I continued to have success, but I want to thank my high school coach, which he probably will never hear this, Dan Gandy, back in Duncanville, Texas. Duncanville, Texas is a suburb in Dallas, Texas, but Coach Gandy was the first coach to really get me to look at my education and look at my grades opposed to just focusing on football, because at that time, all I wanted to do was play football. I could care less about school. But Coach Gandy took the time to teach me and show me that there's going to be a different aspect in your life later on. So I want to thank Coach Gandy for taking that time, for caring about me. Throughout my high school career, he stayed on my butt about my grades. He stayed on my butt about my attitude, about my grades and education. So for all you coaches, there are some coaches out here, stay on those kids, but it will make a difference. It will sink in. So I'm thankful for Coach Gandy. I was fortunate enough to get to my senior year and graduate and eventually get a scholarship to the University of Arkansas, which is probably the greatest university in the land. So it worked out for me. So, having an opportunity to come play for Ken Hatfield, which was probably the winning point for me, the high point for me is playing for Coach Hatfield, who I feel is a great coach. Had the opportunity to listen to him speak and interact with his young men. And, being a coach myself and a teacher myself, I really admire the fact that he always approached his players with a Christian attitude, with a positive attitude. So I want to thank Ken Hatfield once again for, impacting my life in a very positive way. As you guys already know, I had a very productive career at Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas was probably some of the most fun I've had playing football. I mean, I played with so many great guys, been coached by so many great coaches. I mean, guys like Steve Atwater and Wayne Martin and Elbert Crawford, Juju Harshaw, Quinn Grover. I mean, we had so many great players. It made it easy for me to fit in and contribute because those guys were so great already. Our teams were very successful. I mean, Ken Hatfield, kept his boys motivated. We wanted to play for Coach Hatfield, and we definitely didn't go 2-8. And so, my freshman year, we were fortunate enough to go to the Liberty Bowl and play the Georgia Bulldogs. 2 years in a row, we went to the Cotton Bowl, got beat by Troy Aikman and UCLA Bruins. The next year, we went to the Cotton Bowl again and got beat by Tennessee. So we were very competitive. I played with a ton of guys who should have made it to the NFL. They were very talented. The Razorback fans, I've never seen any other fans like you guys. Awesome experience. Fortunate enough, after Arkansas, I did get drafted. I was one of the few guys to get drafted, went to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 5th round. Another great life experience playing for a great organization. Fortunate enough to play for Hall of Fame coach Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher. Had great success at that level, but, like I said earlier, it's really those early coaches and early teammates that I remember the most that really make football fun for me. So enjoyed it. Glad I'm here. Thank you guys for listening to me. David, I guess we got some Q&A that we need to do. So thank you guys for coming out.
Well done. Well done. One of the amazing stats that I saw that Barry had, Jim mentioned it, the 1992 season against, when he was for Pittsburgh, had 1,600 yards rushing, somewhere in that ballpark. You were the AFC leading rusher, which is really cool, Pro Bowl, all that. But did you know that he was only 23 yards behind Emmitt Smith of being the NFL leading rusher? And what's 23 yards behind Hall of Famer. That's it, being the leading rusher in the NFL. So, the other thing was that you had 12. Get this, Rex and Jim. Think of these stats. He had 12 100-yard games. Wow. 12 100-yard rushing games that year for Pittsburgh, which I think may still be an NFL record. I don't know.
No, Barry Sanders broke it.
Broke that,
a couple
did he?
years ago.
Well, that's all right. At least you keep up with that. I always like
I
the
didn't
guy.
have many, so I tried to keep up to at least the one I had.
You mentioned coaching, teaching. Tell everybody what you're doing now.
Actually, I'm a middle school PE teacher back in Louisville, Texas, which is another suburb in Dallas. I get opportunity to teach physical education to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Enjoy it. Get a chance to coach football, basketball, and track. So I'm having fun.
And here's an Arkansas connection. You actually have a son that goes to school here in Arkansas.
Yes, my son is a freshman at Harding University in Searcy. He's a soccer player. They're on a soccer scholarship, so he's enjoying it.
Yeah, there you go. My first question was, is he built like you? Because that'll be the biggest soccer player they've ever seen out there in the field.
Well, he is built like me, but he's about 5'7". But but he's a great soccer player.
What was the difference? What was the reason you chose Coach Hatfield if you were recruited by Southern Cal and Oklahoma, some of the others? What was the difference?
Well, I had the opportunity to sit down with a lot of coaches. Even back then, A&M had Coach Sherrill. He was a great coach, and a lot of kids wanted to go there. But having the opportunity to sit down with Coach Hatfield, it's just something about him talking to me, just kind of touched me personally. He reached out better than the other coach. He just made me feel like he really wanted me as a person and not just as a football player.
Yeah, you were talking about 2-8. You didn't go 2-8. I want you guys to think about the players they had those years. Steve Atwater and Wayne Martin were freshmen for me, so we had a little overlap. But you had Wayne Martin, Steve Atwater, Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer, you, James Rouse, Derek Russell, Albert Crawford, Jim Mabry. I mean, you guys had who? Quinn Grovey.
We had a ton of guys. I mean, there's so many guys. I mean, when I got there, I mean, the team was already prepped to win. I just had to, get in and do my part. But we had so much talent. Guys that I'm forgetting to name. We were very good.
But the moral of the story is, you can talk about wanting to win, but you win with players. You got to have players. And boy, looking back at that roster that they had back then, and that's why they went to 2 straight Cotton Bowls. Memory of that game against Miami. That was Steve Walsh was a quarterback, a great team. And what do you remember about that game?
Well, I remember going into that game. All of us were nervous. Because you got to remember the year before they came to Little Rock War Memorial Stadium and just killed us.
Like 50, 55 to something like that?
3 or something like that.
51 to 7?
I mean, so we
53. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were very nervous going into that game. We didn't want to get blown out on national television. And so on the sideline, we was like, oh, my God, if we can just stay close. These guys are the #1 team in the nation. And then they did some kind of flea flicker pass and scored, and we was like, oh, my God, here we go. It's about the floodgates are going to open. It's going to get bad. And then just slowly but surely, we stayed in the game. I just wish Steve Atwater would have caught that interception.
Well, since Steve backed out on us, that's okay. Keep talking. There you go.
No, I'm serious. I love Steve. Great teammate, awesome player. But, man, it was right in his hands. I mean, how did he drop that?
I'm sure he has nightmares. Hey, Steve, this is for you. You could have been here today, but I can't defend you.
I got you, H2O. Don't worry about it, brother.
And remember, what's great about this? What you said about your coaches. We archive every speech. So if you want to let your coaches know, then go to the Touchdown Club website and hear your comments about them. Right. I had forgotten. I don't know. Did you guys know that I've forgotten that you were in the big shootout game versus Houston?
Yeah.
Tell us what you remember about that game.
Well, everybody knows at that time Andre Ware, Houston Cougars. I mean, they were passing like crazy. There was a run and shoot. I mean, that was the old spread offense. Those guys were slinging it everywhere. And we were just hoping to just stay in the game. And I tell you what, that dang Quinn Grovey, Derek Russell, those guys were throwing the ball, passing the ball, catching it. We were blocking. Some kind of way we ended up winning. I don't know how we beat that team.
It was just super loud in the stadium because, remember, I think Coach Hatfield asked all of the fans to be allowed to disrupt Andre Ware.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great turnout. It was packed. Matter of fact, I think maybe Bill Clinton was at the game. I think he was at the game. I think I remember seeing him in the stands or on the sideline, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's the governor of Arkansas." I was like, "Oh, really? So what?" And I was like, "But
back then it didn't mean anything, right?"
Exactly.
If only I could have gone back and shook his head at the time.
Exactly.
I don't know if you know, a lot of controversy over War Memorial versus Fayetteville and moving games, and didn't have a big crowd this Saturday, and so obviously that's a looming potential of moving games all to Fayetteville. What's your thought on as a former player, Little Rock versus Fayetteville games?
I've always enjoyed the Little Rock games. And, it's one of those things where if you're winning, you get support. If you're losing, people don't come out. So if they started winning more, they're going to come out. So I wouldn't abandon Little Rock just yet because it's a great venue. I always enjoy playing there. So
I had forgotten that Barry, and somebody mentioned it, I remember now, he was the first player that came out early, as Jim mentioned it in the intro. And somebody, yeah, can you just close that door, Papa? I remember people getting mad at you because remember coming off two Cotton Bowls, and you decided to leave. It was when Jack Crow came in. Coach Hatfield had to go to Clemson. And so did you have any inkling, did Jack Crow reach out to you? What was your decision? Because you were the first to leave early.
Right. Well, I didn't want to leave, but once Ken Hatfield accepted the Clemson job, I talked to Coach Hatfield, and he said, well, Barry, I'm going to go ahead and take the Clemson job. So I said, well, man, I really don't want to be here without Coach Hatfield, and I knew Jack Crow was going to be the coach. Didn't really care for Coach Crow's coaching style. He's very abrasive, very in-your-face type of coach, and I didn't really appreciate that. So once Coach Hatfield decided to leave, I said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and turn pro and take my chances in the NFL. Didn't expect everyone to get so angry. And, it really was a tough time for a young kid. I think I was 19, maybe 20 years old, but I got through it, but they were angry.
And you weren't drafted until the 5th round, right? So I remember thinking, wow, it may not be in a good move because I thought you might be drafted higher, but you weren't drafted the 5th.
Well, actually, I was supposed to be drafted by the Cleveland Browns in the 2nd round. In 1990, the Cleveland Browns didn't have a first-round pick, so their first pick was going to be that 2nd-round pick. I was in my dorm room. They called me and said, stay by the phone. We're going to draft you with our 2nd pick. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, here we go. I've worked out with these guys tons. They take fullback from Michigan, Leroy Horde, instead. So I'm sitting there like, oh, my God, I've made a mistake. I said I should have stayed in school. I'm not going to get drafted. So I leave, and I go to James Rouse's room where I think, who was it, Anthony Cooney, Edward Crawford. We were all sitting around waiting to get drafted. And so I'm sitting in the dorm room. No one's getting a phone call. No one's been drafted. And I call my dorm room. At the time, we used answering machines. I don't know if you guys might remember those things. I called to check my answering machine. They was like, hey, this is Tom Donahoe from the Pittsburgh Steelers. You just got drafted. I'm out of here, guys. And so I was so happy. I was just glad that I didn't make a mistake.
Well, I'd forgotten, too. I mean, again, you have a Hall of Fame coach that's drafted you, Chuck Noll. What was it like to be in knowing that obviously one of the great coaches of all time in the NFL?
You know what? It was kind of weird. I was always in awe of Coach Noll. I grew up in Dallas. So I grew up a Cowboy fan, watching Tom.
So you hated the Steelers?
Yeah, I hated the Steelers. So my mom and dad, they're all Cowboy fans. My dad is even to this day as a season ticket holder to the Cowboys. So I say, I'm excited to get drafted. I'm like, yeah, I'm excited. I'm like, Steelers? I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work out with my family. So I said, well, I called everybody. I said, hey, I got drafted by the Steelers. They was like, the Steelers? And so I said, well, I get there. I'm in awe. I'm like, this is Chuck Noll. I'm like, man, this guy, super cool guy, tough guy. Enjoyed every minute of it. I mean, it was great for me to play for him.
And, just like my high-profile article this past weekend, they could not leave off the root hog. I've got 9,000 things that are good. They put in 3 good ones and they put the root hog. So I've got to I'm saying that to bring this up. One of the plays that everybody remembers you from is the kickoff. Right. Everybody remembers, remember the play. Describe what happened on that play.
Well, going into that San Francisco game, normally I'm really focused going into each game. But that particular week, I was really playing around, joking around. Even at game day, I'm sitting there joking around, which I normally never do. But this particular day, I'm playing around, I'm goofing off, I'm not focused. Then at the moment of truth, I zoned out.
Ball bounces in front of you about 5 yards on the kickoff.
San Francisco gets the ball going, win the game, and I have to walk to the sideline to all my teammates and explain what happened.
What did coaches say? Were they on you pretty bad, or they?
What? A lot of coaches were angry with me. I was a rookie. You got to keep that in mind. Chuck Noll was the buffer. He came in and said, "Hey, this is a young kid. Don't be too hard on him." I had to stand in front of about 100 media guys and explain why that happened, and I didn't have an answer to why it happened. So, but Chuck Noll, he really did take care of me and at that situation. But you know, it's just a bonehead play I made.
Then you have Bill Cowher come in, and 2 years later, what happened? What happened? All of a sudden, you're the other Barry, and instead of Barry Fanders, you're the other Barry, and you explode for 1,600 yards. What was the difference?
Well, you know, Chuck Noll had a offensive coordinator from the Jets named Joe Walton, which Joe Walton and the Jets you probably don't know because they were sucked anyway. But Bill Cowher brought in Ron Erhardt, who was the offensive coordinator for the Giants, who had just won the Super Bowl. Everybody knows how good Bill Parcells and the Giants have been, so we got his offensive coordinator. He was committed to the run. He felt like I could do it. He put the ball in my hand. I was blessed enough to make a few plays.
What do you remember about that year? You know, you're clipping off 12 100-yard games. What comes to mind when you think about that year?
You know what? I just remember, you know, all the fans just, you know, getting on the bus. I felt like I was really part of it. Before then, I was a special teams player. I was a contributor on the special teams, so I was like, well, you know, I'm part of it, but not really.
You were the star of the team then.
Well, it turned out it wasn't the plan. They didn't know how good I was going to be. I didn't know. No one knew. But it was just a great experience for me to be there and accomplish that with my teammates and actually rewrite the record books. I watched Franco Harris and all those guys. I mean, I erased a lot of their records, which is cool.
Can you imagine being a Dallas Cowboy fan and then as a kid, and then you go up to break all the records of the running backs of the team you hated at the time?
Well, you know, I took a lot of flack being from Texas.
Yeah.
You know, because I will let them know I was from Texas. So
who are the best players you played against or played with, both Razorbacks, college, or pro? Who are the players that stand out that were you're like, man, I better bring my lunch with me to go after these guys?
Well, in the NFL, I mean, every week you're going to have somebody that's going to be an awesome player. For me, because I grew up watching most of these guys, you're talking about guys like Ronnie Lott, Michael Singletary, Lawrence Taylor.
So you played against Singletary and
even though they were at the tail end of their careers and they weren't these super football players, I still remember growing up watching these guys. They were still competitive. Actually, Mike Singletary shut me down. I think he held me to like 23 yards in his last home game at Soldier Field. So, I mean, those guys were my favorite because I grew up watching those guys.
And don't you think he looks great for 44? Oh, my goodness.
Thank you.
Let's open
45 next month. So.
Wait at 45 next. Let's open up for a few questions. We got just a couple minutes. Anybody want to ask Barry a question? I know I peppered him with yes.
Well, I joked earlier about a teammate of mine, Quinn Grovey. He was our quarterback. He couldn't throw. So we had to run. We had to build.
Cannot wait to get Quinn on that next week on the show.
No.
Wow.
No, Quinn.
He did one game against Houston, though, right?
No, Quinn, I'm just joking. Listen, we were in the wishbone. So we had 3 running backs in the backfield. So obviously we were going to run the football, and that's what we did. We did a good job running the football.
What happened, by the way, what happened in it was the worst offensive performance maybe in the history of college football against UCLA. Remember that one that was just, you guys couldn't do anything that game.
Well, you know what? It's like that sometimes. Sometimes other teams, they come out, and you know as a former player, sometimes they're just better that day. They just outperformed us.
Wasn't that because of that? That's why they brought in Jack Crow the next year. Is that right? Am I right on that?
Yeah, and then we got even worse.
But you did.
We were supposed to get better, but we got worse with Crow.
But you went back to the Cotton Bowl and you lit up Tennessee, but lost, right?
Yeah, it wasn't because of Crow though, but yeah, we made.
Obviously, still not a Jack Crow fan. Any other questions? Yes.
Hold on 1 second, guys. Give me 1 second here. This is hard for me to believe. I think I see my old girlfriend.
Is that right?
From Arkansas.
My goodness.
Can you raise your hand? My God, what are you doing
there?
What are you doing here?
You know, I asked Barry if he had any friends in Little Rock. He said, I don't think so. I guess you were wrong, Barry.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm sitting. I looked the first time, and I was like, dang, she looks familiar. I look again. I'm like, I know that's my girl.
Thank goodness you. Now, are you still married?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Well, there'll be plenty of time. His flight's not till 4, so you got plenty of time to catch up afterwards. Over here.
I'm sorry. Say again. Well, that's always going to be predicated on the quarterback. If you got a quarterback that can run and get around the edge, a nice running back that can hit it, I mean, it's very tough because you're going to single out one defender and make that defender make a choice. Now, 99% of the time he's going to choose wrong, and that's when you get those big plays and those big gashes. But it's a very effective play because you are singling out one defender and forcing him to make that decision.
Yes.
What made your son choose Harding University? Good question.
Well, out of the couple of offers that he had, they gave him the best financial package. With his education, he got some scholarship money, financial money, but it was the coach and that financial package. It was a good fit for him. Harding University, great Christian school.
Church of Christ.
Yeah, we're very excited for him to be there, and I'm in Searcy quite a bit.
I think that this probably have time for the last thing. I was reading your last year, I think you had some injuries and you came back and you signed with, was it
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. He goes out there, gets a $300,000 signing bonus, and feels like, you quoted to say, you feel like an old man, old running back. So you go back and you give back the $300,000 signing bonus and walk away from the game at age 26. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
What was going on there? You physically just were?
You know what? My body was just broken down. I just couldn't do it anymore at that level. You guys really don't understand how skilled and how strong you got to be to compete at that level. Those guys are so big and so fast and so strong. You cannot be 80% when those guys are 100%. And, I didn't actually play for Cincinnati, so I didn't feel right taking the money. So I gave the money back. Big mistake. But I should have.
You don't see that anymore. But the other part of that quote was, if I saw it right, I've done well enough and made enough money that I put back in the bank that I'll be okay. So did you do a good job with your money?
I'm happy. I'm in a good place. I mean, my family's healthy. I'm healthy. I've got a great profession as teaching and coaching. So I'm happy with my life.
Well, just think about it. 2 weeks' notice, I called Barry and says, hey, can you help us out? Your teammate, Steve Atwater's backed out on us. And in 2 weeks, he's turned the corner and did this for us. I think he did a great job today. Let's give him a round of applause. Barry Foster, everybody. Thanks for being here. A great year this year, the Touchdown Club. We'll see you at the banquet.